Hello and welcome to another recording of our live stream. In this one, we're going to be doing some scanning inside the screen class. So let's go off and into the screen class and let's update it ready to do some scaling. Now we've done scanning in the display class. We've done it in the mouse and stuff like that. So we're going to add scale to this as well. Okay, so we've added scale there. I'll probably set it for now equal to 1.0 as a default. Sorry. And then in the instantiation of our screen, where we've got width and height, we also want to kind of pass in scale as well. So we'll do that. For this, we need to kind of say, okay, well, I'm setting the width and height, but I want the width and height actually to be scaled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this be a int. Then we'll surround this and divide by scale. Same again for the height. So we want it to be an int. And we'll take height and divide by scale. Okay, now that should be enough to do that. Now, when we're actually doing the pixels, we're still doing the same int width, the width times height. And also we're still doing the same things with our data buffer int and stuff like that. So there's no real difference there. So that's fine. So that being said, when we're actually getting the pixels of the thing, we need some sort of a RGB format to actually allow it to have that specific format of getting the pixels. So let's think about where we want to do that. We need to do that in our say in our rendering of textures. So when we're rendering our textures, at the moment, we're just doing a get pixels, which is fine. But what we do want to do is we want to kind of give it some sort of texture format. So what we can say is we want to say that it's a texture dot and then some sort of format. So we want to be able to give it like a format RGB. So we're going to have to kind of add that into our texture class. Yeah. So we'll add that into there and into the sprite and stuff. We're going to add these different formats. So I will use that now. Say, let's say format underscore RGB. This doesn't exist in the texture class. So what we can do is we can pop on into the texture class and let's make that exist. So I want to be able to do like without alpha and with alpha. So we want a couple of different possibilities. So let's say that we have a public static final integer called format underscore RGB. What we'll say is this is the like we'll set this to 0 or something. So like let's say equals 0x0. And same sort of thing, but RGBA for another format. So with alpha channel. We'll just do that as 0x1. Now we need to kind of deal with what happens with that format and how we are dealing with the format itself. Okay. So in reality, we want like this whole RGB pixels as well as standard pixels. So we'll have our pixels, but we'll also make our RGB pixels. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can actually see this a little bit clearer. RGB pixels as well. So for this, what we're going to do is when we're actually doing our get pixels, so let's find our get pixels. At the moment, we're just returning pixels. So what I want to do is I want to find out its format first. So let's go in here and we'll say if format is equal to format underscore RGB, we'll say RGBA because that's going to be the standard pixels. Then we're going to literally return pixels. Okay. So we don't actually have a format yet. So what we'll say is when we're doing the get pixels, we'll say we want to take in an integer format. Yeah, so there we go. So, and also double equals to say if it's equal to. So there's that. Now we'll say, well, hang on, if we have, if we haven't returned that, then we can fall down and say, well, hang on, it's probably the other format. So if we'll say pixels or RGB pixels is not equal to null. So if there are some, then let's just return them. Okay. Otherwise, we need to turn our RGB pixels into something. So we need RGB pixels equals new integer array of width times height. Then what we need to do is we need to kind of loop over stuff and fill this red, green, and blue in. Okay. So there's a couple of things we need to do. We need to start off saying, okay, well, let's loop over it first. So for int I equals 0, while I is less than width times height, I plus plus. So now what I'm saying is we're going to take our red value. So int R is going to be equal to our pixels at I shifted to the right by 16. Then we've got to do a similar thing for GMB. So let's copy that, paste, paste, paste. So R, then we need green. Green's only going to be shifted by 8. Okay. And then blue is the same, just doesn't have any shifting at all. Okay. We're still going to need to do a few other things to this, by the way. This probably needs some masking as well, actually. But we'll just say, so blue is just not shifted at all. So in essence, we want to do like an ampersand here and literally mask out something. Yeah. For our purposes, we'll mask 0xFF for blue. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do an ampersand, let's say 0xFF00 for green. And then for red, we also need to do some more masking. So we'll say ampersand 0xFF0000. Okay, that's our RGB. Let's get rid of that trailing thing. So that's our red, green, and blue. Now, to put it back into the RGBA, we need to kind of basically reverse the process in a way. We're just gonna be doing some shifting though. We don't need to actually do any masking. So what we'll say is now pixels. Well, actually, sorry, RGB pixels at I are equal to. Now here's where we need to do. We need to do red shift to the left by 16. And we need to OR it against green shifted to the left by 8. And then we'll OR it by blue. Okay, so that will get us the number back as a singular integer. And then once that loop's finished, then we'll just literally return the RGB pixels. And jobs are good. We've got exactly what we wanted there. Right, so now that we've got the texture format done there, let's save that. Let's go back into our screen, and we've got our texture format. So we're just standardizing it in RGB without the alpha channel blending just yet. Okay, So that'll do for the texture stuff, I think. We may have another get pixels in like Sprite as well, I believe. Let's have a look at Sprite. Do we get pixels in there? Yeah, we've got to get pixels there, so we need to refactor that slightly as well. So in the Sprite, for now, we'll still do an RGB. We could always do RGBA later or something. There we go. So that'll give us our standardized, same sort of thing as we're doing already. Yeah. I think that'll do for our texture formats at the moment. Then we probably want to deal with like rendering renderables all over the place and doing like a few entities and stuff and offsets. But for now, I think this will do. And we'll have a little break and then we'll do some more videos. Okay. I'll see you in the next one.